Hi, everybody. You can see a sea of little black boxes. I'm Heather McLean, head of SVG Europe Women. Welcome to the first SVG Europe Women Wellbeing virtual event of 2022, our Strategies for Self-Care workshop. I hope you and your families are all well and had a good break over Christmas. Today, we're focusing on the fact that we're all living in a world with a virus, and we need to, and are now expected to, carry on as before. This workshop will look at the issues of stress and anxiety in relation to our personal and work lives 2 years into the pandemic, as well as providing a series of practical strategies and mechanisms on how to manage our emotions. Before I introduce our speaker today, please can I suggest you change your view as we're in a Zoom meeting to speak of you, although I'm sure many of you have. We're quite well practiced with Zoom these days. Also, please post your questions for our speaker in the chat box, and we'll get to those in around 30 minutes or so. So please welcome back Wellbeing and Resilience coach Sarah Swanton, who is going to take us through our session. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Heather. Hi, everyone.
Great.
Nice to be here.
Cool. Great to have you back again.
Yay.
Yay, exactly. So we're talking about self-care today. So why should we be talking about this?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I'm just going to share my screen. 2 secs. Can you all see that?
Yeah, that looks good.
That? Lovely. Yeah, I mean, before COVID, BC, even in 2019, the World Health Organization reclassified burnout as an occupational phenomenon, which previously was a medical condition, and it's switched to resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. And the reason why this has become even more important is that in April 2021, they went on to identify a new kind of burnout, pandemic burnout or pandemic fatigue, which is the experience of demotivation and exhaustion due to the demands of life during coronavirus crisis. So signs, symptoms include emotional exhaustion, feelings of negativity, feeling pessimistic, feeling demotivated, even a lower quality of work as well, or lower productivity, and really common anticipatory anxiety about the future, and even an apathy towards restrictions and guidelines. So, I mean, there will be people who've never, until the last couple of years, have perhaps never experienced burnout or long-term stress before. And I guess the point of this is to say that for the World Health Organization to say this is a thing, we're not alone if we've been feeling that. I know I've felt these feelings over the last 2 years. So it's probably more so than ever a topic to talk about, because this has been going on, like you say, for 2 years now.
Yeah, and we're still in the thick of it, really. Well, not the...
Yeah.
We kind of are, who knows where we are exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? And that is the thing, it's the uncertainty. And I think in the beginning, a lot of us felt anxiety because it was very new to us. And what begins to happen after a bit of time is that our fight or flight is still kicking in, but we move into that more kind of frustrated, even angry state, whereas previously it was quite anxious and fearful. And it's that begins to make us feel exhausted and demotivated, because it's really tiring on the body to keep feeling like that and to keep going into that fight or flight mode.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I will now hand over to you in your expert tuition to take us through the rest of it. So I'll speak to you.
Lovely. Speak to you in a bit. Thank you, Heather. So yeah, just to say, it's really interesting when we talk about ourselves, I need to switch off, or or the battery's flat. We talk about ourselves like we're a machine, don't we? Sometimes, but we're not. We are very much human. And so it really is to say that if any of these feelings have become the norm, then in a way, it's to say, relax, because you are human and it is normal, really normal to have these feelings. But the point of today's webinar is to just because that has been experienced doesn't mean we have to experience that all the time. There are definitely things we can do. So that's what I'm going to move on to today. And I'm going to talk about really what self-care actually is, because we hear it so much, don't we? We see it as a Instagram hashtag, and it can get misunderstood as being, just go and have a bath, or go out and go for a walk. And yeah, it might be that, but also it's a lot deeper than that. So I'm going to talk about self-care, and I'm going to walk you through how to create a strategic and sustainable self-care plan so that you can spot the first signs of stress or burnout and take action. And that's really important to begin to know what to do, because often we think, I'm feeling this, but I don't know what to do about it. So I'm going to talk you through that. And I'm also going to I don't know if you've noticed feeling more negative. I know at times I have, and I'm going to talk you through a technique that can really help to reduce that that negativity, that feeling when we hear some news, we're like, oh, for goodness sake, and we go off on one. So I'm going to help to really turn down that volume of negativity and help us to feel more optimistic. And this is a technique that's backed by science as well. So and then as Heather said, we're going to have some time for questions and any thoughts or comments you might want to make as well. Often when we take the time out to listen to something like this, we can often have our own insights about, oh yeah, I didn't realize I did that, or maybe I'm going to do this from now on. So feel free to say that as well, anything that you're seeing differently as a result of being here today. So I did fair bit of research into trying to define or get the essence of what actually is self-care. And this was the best one I could find. And I'll tell you why. I'll read it out first. Self-care is about meeting yourself where you are right now instead of where you think you should be, and then thinking about the small steps you can take to care for yourself better. And what I like about that is two things. First of all, it gets rid of that word should. And I think we, not just as women, I think we've got into this way of this mindset of I should be doing this, I should be doing that, or I should be further along than I am. And with self-care, you've just got to meet yourself where you are, because the last thing we want to do, and I hope this comes across on this webinar today, the last thing we want to do is add a whole ton of stuff to our to-do list of self-care chores or tasks or activities that we should be doing. It's about meeting yourself where you are, and then thinking about I'd even go as far as to say the teeny tiny steps you can take to care for yourself better. So that's going to be a theme running through this. And if you take one thing away from today, it's to hold that in your mind. Meet yourself where you are and small steps. And another feature I like to think of self-care is, and I'm not perfect here and don't always get it right, but ideally, self-care is something that nourishes both your current self and your future self. So I guess what I mean by that is, we might be absolutely exhausted, and the only idea that comes to mind is I'm just going to crash on the sofa, I'm going to binge watch Netflix, and I'm going to eat a big old bar of chocolate. And your current self, the you in the here and now, might be like, yeah, that's the best idea, that's all I can do right now. But of course, maybe not necessarily, but maybe when you wake up the following morning or a few days later, it might be, oh, why did I do that? I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd just gone to bed. So mostly, if you can mostly think about self-care being something that nourishes both your current self and your future self. And it's a good question to ask yourself when you're when you're asking yourself, what is it I need? What do I need right now? But also, is it something I will be proud of myself for doing 2 hours from now, tomorrow morning, a week from now? So it's a good distinction. It's the difference between something that's a crutch and something that's a genuine self-care solution. So the question is, how do we create a self-care plan that's realistic, that's doable, that's sustainable, and isn't something that we just put into place when we are already burnt out? Something that's more of a something that's both, something that can help us maintain, but also if we are feeling exhausted, it can energize us again. And if you think about it, we are all living organisms, like animals, for example. We are exactly the same. We need air to breathe. We need water to drink. We need nutritious food, sleep. We need to move regularly. But beyond the physical needs, psychologists have determined that we also have emotional needs. And these emotional needs are what are crucial for our well-being and resilience. And they're what really help us out when we are going through challenges or tough times. These are what can really help us out. And when we have too many of our emotional needs not being met, that's when we begin to notice that we're struggling. So we might notice we're more angry or frustrated than usual. We might find ourselves being snappy, or we might find ourselves being so exhausted we're cancelling things that we normally wouldn't cancel. That's just an example. I mean, it shows up differently for everyone. But the emotional needs are, and I'm not going to go into these in too much detail, and you'll see why in a minute, because I've made it sort of easier to this is a sort of psychologist version, if you like, but I've made it a bit more practical, which we'll go into in a minute. But just the headlines. These are our 9 emotional needs: security, a feeling of safety and security at home and at work and in our environment as well. I'm going to go vertically. A sense of meaning and purpose, which comes from being stretched in what we do. So feeling stretched physically and mentally, setting goals. Intimacy. And I always say at this point, it can mean with a partner, but it doesn't have to. It's really more from a place of having at least one person in your life where you feel you can be completely yourself, warts and all, like they completely accept you, and you can almost take the mask off, if you like. It's one of those people in your life. Attention. We're very, very good at giving out attention and listening to other people, but really, really just as important is having people who can really listen to you as well. So it's that. Privacy. Chance to have time to yourself, time to really, it's that quiet time is when we tend to have those light bulb moments and those insights about ourselves. And it's the time when we can check in. How am I doing? How am I getting on? We're very difficult to get that when life is just on the go all the time. Sense of status. That is literally just, who am I when I'm not my job title? So it might be you're a gardener, it might be you're an artist, it might be you go to a yoga class, or you're you see yourself, or you're a runner, you see yourself as something, you almost label yourself as something because you do it often and you're known for it, and it's something that gives you a sense of meaning as well. Control, it's a big one. Having a sense of control over your life, your emotions, your workload. I mean, it's pervasive, isn't it, really? A sense of community. And this is about something you go to, something you're part of, something that you're attached to, that if you didn't turn up, they'd miss you. And something that gives you, again, a good feeling, a sense of meaning and purpose. They're very much interconnected as well. And finally, a sense of achievement. So that's pretty self-explanatory, having feeling competent, feeling like you're good at what you're doing, and feeling like you know where you're going as well. So those are the 9 emotional needs. I said I'd just fly through them. I ended up sort of discussing them in a bit more detail. But just to reiterate, the psychologists I mentioned, Joe Griffin and Ivan Tyrrell, if any of this is interesting to you, you can go and get more information. The website I recommend is hgi.org. It stands for Human Givens Institute. Not now though, stay with me. But yeah, hgi.org.uk. So I said I was going to make those human needs or those emotional needs easier for more of a practical way of using them. And this is where a self-care plan comes in place. So these questions are really good check-in questions to ask anyway, just as a check-in. But also, if you're feeling out of sorts, these are quite good, almost detective questions to figure out, well, what is going on here? So you start with the basics. First, have I been sleeping well recently? Do I generally feel relaxed or stressed out? Have I been getting out and about, or am I feeling isolated? Is what I'm doing generally meaningful and satisfying? When was the last time I had a really good laugh? I actually asked myself this question a couple of weeks ago. I realized I'd been really serious, and that's always a good sign to me that I need to do something about it. And we watched some really good comedy on TV, and that was it. That's all I needed. And that is a thing. We can feel when we don't feel ourselves, it can feel like it's going to take a really big thing to help us. And actually, it can be something really little. It doesn't have to be huge. Am I getting enough relaxed downtime away from screens and devices? Am I getting enough meaningful interaction with other people? Sometimes we can think, gosh, when was the last time I spoke to my best friend? And it could be like 2 months. You think, goodness, how did that actually happen? Time can just get away with us, and it's asking these questions that really help to focus the mind and think, well, what is it I need? Obvious one here, am I eating healthily and getting enough outdoor exercise? I mean, that one and number 8 and number 1 are the basics, but even those are good to look at. When we're feeling stressed out, we forget to ask ourselves the basic questions. And do I have things in the diary to look forward to other than Zoom meetings and work stuff? Have I got stuff to look forward to? Even if something's in the diary in 3 months' time, it's nice to have in there. And I think we've all missed that a lot as well. And do I feel reasonably secure in life and relationships and work most of the time? Just a little one there. So these questions, or the answers that, and it can change as well from week to week, but the answers that come from this are really helpful to then ask the question, okay, so what can I do about it? And that's really good. It doesn't have to be huge things. These are really small steps, meeting yourself where you are at the moment. Heather has a copy of just this page. If you want it, just email her and she'll send it over to you, if that's useful. So yeah, just a reminder, self-care is about meeting yourself where you are right now instead of where you think you should be, and then thinking about the small steps you can take to care for yourself better. So if it feels too big, halve it again. It can never be small enough. Right, just go through to the next one. So hopefully this is useful so far. I'm now going to move on to how to reduce negativity and feel a little bit more optimistic. When we are in fight or flight or freeze, and if you think about it, fight is would come out as being angry or snappy or irritable. Flight would come through as being quite anxious and just, right, I need to go, I need to leave, I can't be here. And freeze is the burnout. That is can't move, can't do anything. And that's the exhaustion kicking in. So when we're in that mode and it's showing up as one of those, our thinking tends to reflect that as well. It's in the form of quite extreme black and white thinking. it sometimes gets expressed as all or nothing thinking. Probably heard that a lot, all or nothing. And actually, from an evolutionary perspective, we're designed to be black and white thinkers. We, particularly in crisis situations, that's our brain doing what it should be doing, given that it thinks we're in a crisis situation. That's what's going to happen. But what happens when this becomes a long-term way of operating in the world? That's when negativity can begin to become a bit of a habit. And we find ourselves automatically reacting to situations that maybe a couple of years ago we would have been able to think quite logically, and now we might be becoming a little bit more emotional or a bit more reactive than we would like to. And it feels out of our control, perhaps, as well. Well, again, that's just the fight or flight just reacting on our behalf. And if that does feel true, it could just be a habit that you've learned to do. And just as we can learn how to do habits, we can unlearn to do them as well. So this, and when we think about being negative, it doesn't feel very nice as well. It can, if you think about a little bit of negativity, because we don't want to be Pollyanna, but it can be quite fun sometimes, just a little bit of negativity. And even it's been shown it can help people bond as well if you're moaning about the same thing together. But if it's becoming more than that, and if it's becoming a habit, then negativity is actually a precursor to depression. So it's a good idea to when you find yourself being, do you know what, I never used to be this negative, just kind of checking it. And this is the best way to reverse it. And it's really simple. It's gratitude. And gratitude, researchers have found that keeping a gratitude diary results in increased enthusiasm, optimism, and energy. And this was actually in a white paper published by the Greater Good Science Centre in 2018. And it concluded that people who regularly practice gratitude by intentionally noticing and reflecting on the things that they're thankful for, they experience more positive emotions, they're less envious, they sleep better, they naturally have more compassion and kindness to others. And that's without even trying. That's just practicing gratitude. And these are the happy side effects of doing that. They also have a stronger immune system as well, which is something we could all do with right now. And so the good news is it doesn't have to take much effort or time or energy in order to get all of those gains that I've mentioned. And maybe some of you have already have a gratitude practice, it gets called. And if you have, brilliant. I'd love to hear how that's been working for you. And for those that haven't, it's really easy to do. You just sit down with a cup of tea, if you want, and you just either pull up notes on your app or a notebook or a nice journal, and every day for the next week, just note down 3 things that you're glad about for that day. So it might be, I'm really glad I got to speak to so-and-so today. I've been chasing them for weeks. Or it might be like really normal stuff, it doesn't have to be big earth-shattering stuff, or it could be, I'm really glad I got out for a run this morning, even though it was only 10 minutes. I definitely feel much better because of it. I'm really glad I didn't buy that chocolate bar at the petrol station. Otherwise, I'd be regretting it now. Little things like that done on a daily basis can really have a compound effect. And maybe don't stop there at a week. Make it part of your day. It can be a good way to introduce a new habit is to tag it onto something that you already do, and certainly have it within your sight. So it might be, you decide, do you know what, I'm going to give this a go, and I'm going to have a nice notebook, nice journal next to my bed, so that when I jump into bed, I see it and I just write in it 3 things I'm glad happened today. Or it might be when you get up the next morning, it's next to the kettle, and as the kettle's boiling, you just 3 things I was glad that happened yesterday. So I'm all about the incorporating it into your day already without making it something, a chore or something that you feel like, oh, I haven't done that. Make it easy. And once again, the research says that gratitude works because rather than constantly focusing on what we don't have, we learn to focus on what we do have. So we're almost turning that wheel from dissatisfaction to satisfaction or gratitude with what we already have. So I like that. So today we have gone through the signs and symptoms of burnout as per the World Health Organization. We've looked at self-care and how to make it realistic and sustainable. And we've looked at our human emotional needs and why they're important to our well-being and resilience, and how to do that on a practical basis, the 10 self-care check-in questions to ask yourself when you need them. And it's really good as well to for others around you, loved ones, friends, to share this with them as well. Sometimes you don't need to ask all 10 questions to know what's going on. You can circle in on it immediately. And we've looked at how to have a simple gratitude practice and how that's proven to be a powerful antidote to a negative mindset. So I'm going to hand over to Heather. But once again, if you'd like a PDF of the self-care check-in questions, do email her. She's got a copy, haven't you, Heather? And we can send that over. So
yes, I do. So yeah, just my email is heather@sportsvideo.org. So you can just drop me a line and I'll pop it over to you. So thank you for that, Sarah. That was really, really interesting. Please post some questions for her in the chat box. Make the most of the next 30 minutes that we've got. But I have a couple of questions for you that raised for me. I was just thinking, one of them, Sarah, was sometimes when you're burnt out, you're kind of at the end of your tether, and finding the time is one thing, but finding the energy, to get off the sofa with Netflix and not chocolate for me, wine for me, but to do even a small step can seem like a colossal task just in itself. So what should I do if that's the situation I find myself in?
Yeah, that's a good one. And there's 2 things that come to mind here. The first one is when everything feels hard, and we're using that word a lot as well. Everything feels hard, nothing's going right. That kind of language. It's probably a sign that we're in fight or flight mode, and so it's really hard to see things in small steps when we're in that mode. So one thing I would suggest doing is there's actually something we can do ourselves to get ourselves out of fight or flight and back into that more kind of not relaxed necessarily, but you can do if you do it for long enough, but more kind of a little bit more logic, little bit more able to see clearly. And that's called 7-11 breathing. And we hear about breathing all the time, do breathing. But I think it's worth saying why this is so powerful. And it's nothing really to do with, it's more to do with the out breath being longer than the in breath. So it could be 7-11, but it could be 3-5. And it's what happens when we breathe out for longer than we breathe in. What we do is we switch on the body's natural relaxation response, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is what just calms everything down and gets us out of fight or flight and out of that emotional mode and back into logic and reason. And we've got we feel like us again, you feel like yourself again. I'm happy to demonstrate it if you like, right?
Yeah.
We've got time.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Guys, everyone's got their cameras off at the moment. Turn them on. Let's see you. If you're, as long as you're not naked or anything. But yeah, turn your cameras back on. So, and then we can all have a go at this. Right, after you, Sarah.
Okay. So you can either close your eyes or have them open. It really doesn't matter. And just put your hands on your belly. And the reason I say that is because that's where you want to be breathing from. When we breathe up here, it's quite sort of angsty breathing. We want to be breathing much deeper down into our diaphragm. And yeah, when you feel fairly comfortable in your chair, you just want to, first of all, breathe out. My microphone. And then just breathing in. 1, 2, 3. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And in. 1, 2, 3. And out. 2, 3, 4, 5. And just keep going in that way. Making the only rule here is that the out breath is longer than the in breath. That's all you have to do. And as I'm talking and you're still doing that, you're counting in your head. It's one of the most powerful but simple tools, because the thing is, you can be doing it when you're in a meeting. You can be doing it. No one has to know. You're just breathing in a certain way. And so that's what I love about it. And within a few breaths, I mean, I don't know if you already noticed, just feeling that just little bit calmer.
Yeah, I can feel my muscles relaxing.
Yeah.
It kind of, they have to make it work. And I did find when I get stressed, I feel a bit like I'm not breathing enough. You know, I must be just breathing from really high up, you know, you almost feel like you're suffocating. It's nice.
It's nice, isn't it? And panic is really just an inappropriate gym response. If you think about what we're doing when we're panicking, you know, the heart's beating faster, we might feel a bit sweaty. It's all the kind of reactions you'd expect if you're running on a treadmill or running through the forest hard.
I thought you said gym response.
Yeah, inappropriate gym response. And so again, our body, even when we're in panic, our body is not doing anything weird. It's just misplaced. It's like, oh, we don't need to be running away right now. And so the breathing just calms it right down. And the fact that you're staying there, you're not running out the room, is like, it's like adrenaline is a bit like gold, or a bit like the emergency services. They'll only turn up if they really are needed. And if they realize they're not needed, they're off again and they leave you to it. So it's just breathe and stay where you are and
breathe out. If anyone has a question, rather than post questions, you can ask Sarah direct. So just raise your hand, you know, turn your camera on, or poke me. I don't know, how do we wave at each other? Reactions, there you go. Put your hand up or something and ask a question. But while you're thinking of your questions, so my reaction when I felt burnt up, which was the latter half of 2020 and the beginning of 21, is not to take small or sensible steps at all. It's literally stop everything, drop the lot, cut my losses, run away kind of thing. That's what I feel like doing when I'm in that situation. So I know is that a normal reaction to have just cut the losses and run reaction, or am I abnormal? Should there be a mix of things going on?
No, you're not abnormal at all. I mean, I can relate to that feeling, and I know, we all can at some point. It's a really normal response, but it doesn't feel appropriate in the moment. I get that as well, and that's a really good example that you mentioned there. That is fight or flight. That's classic fight or flight. Fight or flight is, if we're thinking in black and white terms, all or nothing terms, like, right, I just need to, and we talk about big overhauls, or I need to change everything. That's black and white thinking, speaking. And so sometimes it can go on and we don't even recognize it. It just feels very compelling. But hopefully after today, you recognize it a bit more, like, okay, am I being, classic giveaway signs up the words always and never. This always happens to me, I'm never gonna whatever. And then okay, I'm on to myself, maybe I'm doing a bit of black and white thinking here. So the first thing is, right, okay, I'm going to get myself out of this, and let's just do a bit of breathing. And sometimes you might have to do breathing every hour on the hour. That's okay. It's okay. We just meet ourselves where we are. If we feel ourselves get into it. And I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I was constantly having to take myself off to have a little bit of breathing, because it was just too much. And it was like, okay, well, this is how it is at the moment. And eventually that logical thinking comes in again, and then it might go again, and then it doesn't. But it's in those moments of calm, those are the decisions we can then trust. But if we're in black and white, it's best to defer decisions until we're in a bit more of we're just feeling more like ourselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, Louise, you're the only person with your camera on. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I've got the dog on my lap. I guess, I'm not very good at any of this, and I feel like I've been running all through the pandemic. And I think because there's a sense of, whilst I know I'm in that feeling of, probably partial burnout, it's everything's still coming, it doesn't stop. I've still got to make decisions on big things. And if I don't make decisions on big things, actually, then it's not going to happen. So, the worry is then that you can completely burn out, and then, but it's how, I guess we've discussed some of the tools but at some point you still know you've got to get on with everything. So, how is it best to, just carry on and not fall out of the pattern of not putting this as a priority, when it is key.
Yeah, it's that feeling of, well, if I stop, then what happens? There's still, if I stop, then I'm going to get even more overwhelmed. I've just got to keep putting fires out and keep reacting and keep making decisions. Yeah, absolutely. And there is something about being busy on the outside, but being a little bit calmer on the inside, so that you still, your life might not change at all on the outside, but on the inside you're finding that your life is just slowing down a bit in here, and so you can get to stuff. And I love that you've brought this up, because none of this is about making big huge changes at the moment. It might just be, right, how can I be creative with this? How can I be really smart with this? How can I, the things that I'm already doing, how can I sneak in a little bit of meditation here and there, or a bit of breathing, without it changing, without it cramming your diary even more, if that makes sense. And you'll have, maybe as I'm saying that, there'll be little ideas coming to you about, well, maybe I could do this, and I don't know what that looks like, because it looks different for each of us. But for me, for example, I don't do yoga for longer than 10 minutes, but that's much more doable for me than trying to get to a class or doing an hour and a half. It just wouldn't happen. And then it becomes counterproductive, because it becomes stressful. So the smaller the things you can do, just being sneaky with it. And it's almost quite smug. It's like, here I am boiling the kettle and I'm doing some breathing. Or does that help a bit?
Yeah, it does. You said two things that really resonate there. It's still being busy on the outside, but like almost slowing the inside down, your thoughts and the way you make, just slowing it down. So it still appears that everything's the same, but actually, you've just slowed everything down. And like you're saying, sneaking time, because what I tend to do is, if you can't give that hour to something, the gym or the whatever, I kind of like, you skip it. And then in skipping it, it's another week gone by where you're like, what have I really done that hasn't been just going and going and going all week? So no, those two things were, really important.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yeah. I understand that. If I can't do it properly, all out, then I'm not going to do it at all, and I'll sit here and feel sad and bad. Yeah. We've got another question from Rachel Mullihill. She says, any tips when in a heightened state of anxiousness or stress on how to really switch off, particularly at night? Oh God, yeah. When my brain seems to do its upload when I'm trying to nod off.
Yeah, it all seems to save itself, doesn't it, for just going to bed or 3 o'clock in the morning. Whoa. There is that this is called I can't remember the psychotherapist who does it. I must remember his name, it will come to me. But anyway, his technique is brilliant. It's called the Emergency Handbrake. And what it is and you only do this when you're in a really panicked state of mind, otherwise it will feel quite weird. Your audio is delayed.
Oh, that's why she's asking on here rather than...
Oh, I get it. Sorry, I thought it was me. So what you do is you do take a deep breath in, and then I'm going to demonstrate actually, and then you blow out super duper slowly. So I'll just demonstrate. So you go. And so it goes on until you get till you release your breath. And you do that really, really slowly, and you kind of purse your lips. And what that is doing is it's putting a stop to panic. So it's when it's really, really, it's used in panic. It's used for panic attacks. And it just helps to regulate, because what we're doing when we're getting ourselves all worked up with anxiety, or anxiety is taking over, it's because we're in fight or flight, and also our carbon dioxide, we need more carbon dioxide, and it's focusing on the breathing out as well. So that's a good one. Another one is the equivalent of the old-fashioned paper bag. Do you remember that?
Yeah, on a lot of American movies, ladies breathing.
Yeah. And there's actually a lot of truth in that. So you don't have to have a paper bag. You can just put your hands over your mouth and just breathe. I mean, maybe a mask does it, but what you're wanting to do is get more carbon dioxide into your body, but not for long, because otherwise it can make you feel a bit weird. But if you're in panic mode, that's a really good one to do as well. And I've got one more, if that's helpful. One more. Yeah. This technique is it actually comes from the recovery community, and you'll see why. It's called SOBER, which is an acronym. Mm-hmm. And when you find yourself in a bit of a thought storm, remembering, you can write this down if you want, SOBER. So it stands for, the S is for stop. And you literally say out loud, or if you're in bed and someone next to you, stop, and you say stop, and then you observe. So O is for observe, and it's like, well, what is actually going on here? What is actually going on at the moment? Well, I'm worrying about, and you get a handle on what it is that's going on. I'm worrying about this, this, and this. And it's almost like you're saying the highlights of it, rather than getting into the detail. B stands for breathe. So that's when you go into your breathing out for longer than you breathe in. And then E is you expand it. So you expand what you want to do. When we're in anxiety, we're very much thinking about what's going through our head. We can make it worse, perpetuate it. And what you're doing is you're just expanding your awareness to the rest of your body. So you might be thinking about your legs or your shoulders, it's kind of taking it away from your head. And then R is respond, which is literally, what do I need? What is it I need right now? What do I need? And you make a bit of a plan or a bit of a pact with yourself. And if it keeps going, if it's going, I mean, there's also things you can do, which could be, you know what, I'm going to work with a coach and help with this. Or I'm going to get a therapist to help me with this. I think we can sometimes think, oh, I should be able to deal with this, but it's okay to ask for help as well. So it might be, what do I need? I need to start chatting to someone about this, or calling some friends and being a bit more open about this, or pick up the questions as well.
And
ask yourself, what do I need?
Yeah, that bit you said about what do I need, that I think the question, those 10 questions could be really useful, because I found when I was stressed the hell out, I knew I needed something, but I couldn't work out what I needed. Hence, my thought was cut everything, start again.
Yeah.
But that was the hard bit. It's like, how do you work out what you need? But the 10 questions, I didn't have that. I didn't think of that sort of thing, you know, that sort of very simple thing, you know.
Yeah, it does hoodwink us, doesn't it?
That need to fix it, you know.
Yeah.
I think we're told we need to fix everything straight away, and I like solutions. I like to fix things, you know, right, glue it together, gorilla glue, but you know, doesn't work on humans so well.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it amazing, like even when we're in the midst of stress, we're still in a solution focused mode. Like we rarely, we still have hope. Like I know I need to do something, what do I need? Or the resilience has been, I mean, we've all had a chance to see how blooming resilient we all are. It's often only in a crisis when we see how amazing we are, really. My goodness. Yeah.
And we've got another question from Christiane Zahn, who says, what do you think about a guided meditation / hypnosis app at night when your head's spinning? Or do you think the presence of a cell phone, you know, smartphone, adds the stress up again, you know, staring at a screen while you're trying to be calm?
Yeah, I think that's a really good one, isn't it? And I think I'm a big fan of apps, and I'm a trained hypnotherapist as well. So I love that you mentioned hypnosis there. And I can really recommend hypnosis downloads, and you may have your own, hypnosisdownloads.com. You may have your own apps that you like to use. But your question around, is that going to be, I mean, it's a toughie, isn't it? Because you could do the relaxation and feel good, and then easily pick up the phone and have a little look through Instagram, and that could happen. But I suppose it's just it's a bit like taking a paracetamol, you know. If you're using a phone for the right reasons, and then you wouldn't, you know, it's like doing a deal with yourself, right? I'm going to have this phone because it's actually here to help me. And more often than not, if it does help you, then keep going. But if you're finding that I'm actually, you know, using it or waking up in the middle of the night and picking it up, then maybe not. Maybe switch it to, you do your meditation as the last thing you do downstairs on the sofa, and then you leave it in the living room, and then you go upstairs to bed. So just be a bit kind of creative, you know, yourself as well. Around what you think will work best for you. But big fan of hypnosis downloads, meditation apps, because it just calms the whole body down, which is the precursor to sleep. A relaxed body is one that will sleep and rest throughout the night. So try it out.
Yeah. I will actually. I don't use any of the apps, but I'll have a look at them. Okay. We haven't got any more questions, but I just wanted to make one last comment about, it's interesting about how the whole pandemic and stress thing touches on whether you're an introvert or extrovert. Because I always thought I was very extroverted, but then over the last couple of years, I've realised I think I'm an introvert in, you know, I know there's a balance, it's like a seesaw, but I must have quite a lot of introvert in me, because I really like being at home. You know, I like pottering around in the garden, but then I've got other friends who found, you know, lockdowns and all that incredibly difficult, and as soon as they were allowed out, they were out, you know.
Yes. That's I love that. I mean, introvert, extrovert, it's all about where do you get your energy from? So I'm an introvert, and the only way I truly recharge, there you go, talking about myself like I'm a machine, recharge the battery is through completely being by myself. And like you say, there are other people who are extroverts who get their energy from being around other people and and it's the pandemic has given us a chance to really see that. You can also get ambivert as well, where you're a bit of both, so you might be both, Heather.
I don't ambivert, that's new.
Yeah, but it is an interesting one, and it is Susan Cain wrote The Quiet Revolution, and that's all about being an introvert. And yeah, it's all about where you get your energy from, and it's really good to realize or notice which one you are, because then you can manage as best you can. You can manage your day or your life around that. So if you're going on a big trip somewhere and you're an introvert, you might want to schedule in the next morning no calls at all, because you'll be done in and you need to recharge. So it is useful to know. Yeah,
definitely. I haven't been really that aware of it or bothered by it until the last couple of years, sort of thing. But interesting, right, well, that's it for today. Thank you so much, Sarah. Do you have any last words that you want to share, or things you want us to go away with?
No, I think if any of this has resonated today, then great. And I hope that what's come across is that self-care is something that doesn't have to be huge, but it also we need a healthy respect for it as well. And I think our bodies are amazing in a way, in every way really, in the fact that they are always trying to let us know, and if we listen to them we can catch things. But the problem is that we often press override, but actually when we tune in, and those check-in questions are a really good way of tuning in, we can avoid that. What we're always trying to do is just avoid burnout, and because the body, if we don't listen, eventually the body goes, well, you haven't been listening, so I'm just going to give you an enforced rest, and that's when we go into burnout. So I think listening into our bodies and asking those self-checking questions and the breathing without it taking over can be just a really good way of keeping ourselves in check. So yeah, those are the final last words.
Love it. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thanks for coming back again. So I think this is your third or fourth time with us, so it's much appreciated. And all these tools are fantastic as well. I'm definitely gonna use these. I'm gonna do it. they're nice and easy, bite-sized, and I feel comfortable with them. And thank you everybody for coming along. There's a lot of names that I recognise, and quite a few that I don't as well, so it's lovely to see all of you. I hope you found it all very helpful. As Sarah said, I do have the PDF of the 10 questions, so if you would like a copy, just drop me an email. My email's on the website, or it's heather@sportsvideo.org, so just get in touch and I'll give that back to you. This session will be available on demand in the next few days on our website and on our YouTube channel, so it's there for you to use forever. And stay in touch, tell me your news, keep an eye out for our mailer on our next event, which will be in March. And I'm hoping that this year we'll finally have a couple at least face-to-face events as well, so maybe we'll actually get to have a drink together. Stay safe until then. Lovely to see you. Thanks a lot. Bye.